the organization is called Youth Climate Collaborative, or YCC. And we're trying to make it easier for young people to get involved and stay involved in climate action, and to foster intergenerational decision-making, power sharing.
This is a podcast called Walk, Talk, Listen. An attempt to connect people and make this world a bit better by sharing opinions and experiences based on the belief that everyone's perspective is true, albeit partial. My name is Maurice Blom, and I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of Walk, Talk, Listen. Good day, everybody. This is another episode of the podcast Walk, Talk, Listen. And as always, I'm delighted with today's guest who will introduce herself. Pooja, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pooja Tilvawala. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I grew up in Bensalem, PA, but was born in India. I run an organization called Youth Climate Collaborative. I actually just quit my job in December to go all in on this org that I launched in 2020.
So before I'm going to ask you some questions about your organization. Tell a little bit about yourself, in terms of, we know now where you were born, but where did you go to school? What did you study? And how did you end up where you are now?
Yeah, so I'm 27 years old. When I was younger, I loved just being outside, playing outside. And then that grew into some volunteer projects that were more like outdoors work, and then a job that was with Urban Adventure Squad, where we got kids outdoors on their days off from school. And then I found myself getting more involved in environmental work because I learned about UNA-USA, that's the United Nations Association of America. And they had these cool blogger fellow opportunities where you could attend the Global Climate Action Summit and write blogs. And just being there, I took that leap to go there because I had taken a few classes or experiential or participated in this experiential program in Nicaragua, for example, that was like living in the rainforest for a week. And so I had this natural love for the environment and was studying international studies, and climate change being such a global issue that relates a lot with international development, which was a key focus for me at that point. I was like, let's go, let's see how it is. And who knows, maybe I'll really like it. And I did, I really did. And just really started getting more and more involved after that by asking people, how are you getting involved? What are ways I can get involved? And just learning and going from there.
And you said your love for the environment. Was that something that came from your parents or from family members or friends, or was it as a result of books you read? How did it come about?
I think just because when I lived in an apartment complex growing up, and after school, after we all did our homework, we would just go to the playground or go to basically there would be all these apartments, and behind them there would be this huge grass patch. And then just one common playground area. And so we just all flocked there after doing our homeworks every day. And so I think from that, I just like being outside. It was associated with just this joy. And I'm naturally very curious. And when you're outside, there's so much to be curious about how does our world work, or just in awe of the natural beauty there. I wouldn't say it comes from parents per se, but I'd say probably from how I where I grew up, probably.
And going fast forward, so you studied international relations, right?
Yeah, so I have a BA in international studies with focuses on justice, ethics, human rights, and international development and South Asia. And then I have a BS in economics.
Okay. And when did you start your own organization then? And why?
So I started my own organization in 2020. I graduated in 2018. So about 2 years after graduating. And that was because when I was getting involved in climate change, there were these different barriers that I noticed, that I faced myself, such as trying to figure out how to get involved or how to access funding to do my own projects. And in talking to other peers, they were facing similar issues. So then I thought, how can I'm a very like solutions oriented person. Like if I see a problem, I want to, figure out how can we solve this. And throughout life, I've always applied for different funding opportunities to like do mini projects. And so I saw this as kind of like a bigger project, like now having finished school and worked for 2 years, feeling confident or more confident in my skills to be able to take that next step of actually starting something bigger or creating a movement. And so, and then I got like the push that I needed because I was talking to a professor about my ideas and he's like, start writing these down. This was after graduating. And then one day I opened LinkedIn and saw this opportunity to apply for $60K in funding from what was called the Kennebunkport Climate Initiative at that point.
So tell me, what is your organization about? What are you trying to achieve? And how is it going?
So the organization is called Youth Climate Collaborative, or YCC, and we're trying to make it easier for young people to get involved and stay involved in climate action, and to foster intergenerational decision making, power sharing. And so, like, friends and I were facing different barriers in getting involved, such as access to finances, such as not having the space to be involved in decision making in a meaningful way, such as not knowing where to go to look for ways to get involved locally, internationally, at different scales. And so we just started coming up with these different solutions for these problems, such as an eco action map. Basically, it's a tool where you can create a free account and add your organization to the map. And as a user, if you zoom into where you live, you'll see the different orgs and entities around you that you can get involved with. And you can even learn about upcoming events, funding opportunities, et cetera, all on the map. It's just a giant search engine. And then for the decision making, we've got this initiative, Youth on Boards, to track which orgs have brought youth onto their boards and what benefits that has brought or the lessons learned, so that when we go to orgs that do not have youth voices on their boards or advisory councils, we can say, here's who's doing it, here's how they're doing it, here are some models you can adopt, so that they can start implementing that. And then if they need help finding the youth, we're happy to help as well. And then we've got a podcast called Dare to Envision. So that's to inspire people who may be having a hard time envisioning a better life for themselves and their communities, to see other people who have been able to envision that and the steps that they're taking to get there. And then the last thing we have are our climate courage workshops. These are for young people facing eco-anxiety or something similar, so that they can exchange strategies for coping with it and learn how to be there for others who are facing it. So those are like the four main programs. And then overall, our goal is to enable more coordination and cohesion amongst the youth climate movement globally.
When would 2023 be successful for you from the company point of view?
I think having a solid team of maybe at least like 8 full-time people and a solid volunteer team as well, leading the different initiatives. I think that would be a good start, and making sure that the map is successful locally initially in the US and then expanding it to more regions as we find more volunteers and success. So, and the other success metric would be raising probably around 200K. That would be the goal by the end of the year, if we can do that.
Wow. And you have already, in mind on how you're going to do that? Find the staff, find the resources.
Yeah.
Okay.
I luckily have made a lot of friends over the past few years of being in this space who are eager to get involved, but I've actually just been like, wait, now is not the time yet. I need to set some more infrastructure first, because I went into a different full-time job and now I'm coming back into this, and so I'm like, wait until the foundation is properly set, and then yes, please come on in. And right now I'm in the final rounds for 50K grant, so fingers crossed.
Great. So for the listeners, and especially the younger audience, how can they find out more about your organizations? Is there a website? Can they find out the map that you have been working on already? If they would like to apply for a job, should they go to your website? So give a little bit of information, and we'll make sure that is mentioned in the podcast notes as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not funding available for paid jobs yet, but there will be funding soon for internships. And if you want to check out the map or some of our other programs, you can visit youthcc.org, and you'll find everything that you need there. Or you can follow me on LinkedIn and ask me any questions you have there.
Well, I will be following you, because I'm intrigued by what you're trying to do, and that's great. It's important, but also to see how you will ensure that your dream will come true and continue to make an impact in this around this very important work. Pooja, you know that I started this podcast as a result of a 100-mile walk that I've been doing for the last 11 years or so. Because 2 years ago I could not be accompanied by people, so I started walking virtually, and then this podcast, got out of hand a little bit. Anyway, I'm happy that I'm doing it, because I've been able to meet such great people. But if you would be asked to walk 100 miles in a week, so that means 15 to 20 miles a day, for which cause would you do it?
Yeah, I would actually, to maybe your surprise, it's actually a tough decision, right? There's 3 things that come to mind. I will pick one at the end if you make me. But the first one would be YWCA. That's the Young Women's Christian Association of Bucks County.
Okay.
So growing up in Bensalem, PA, I grew up with a very, very active YWCA. And thanks to them, my parents didn't have to worry about after school care, Saturday camp, which is in the early morning Saturday, about, Christmas presents. We don't celebrate Christmas, but it was still nice to be able to, receive presents like the rest of the kids do. And basically have the support that we needed initially when we moved, when they moved, really. And I was a baby from India to America. And so they're a huge cause, like providing the foundational support that a lot of immigrants need when they've just come to a new country, so that they're able to take that support and grow with their hard work. So they're one. Another one is Do Better for Steve. And this is an organization dedicated to Stephen Camerota, who is a friend of mine from college and who had passed away. Now they do good for the community that he grew up in. He just represented, like, embodies, well, was somebody who always sought to do better and pushed everybody to do better. And really, it comes down to how can you be there for your community and for your close circle of friends and family, and take the actions needed to help them out, right? And so that's another cause. Really, I think both of them have that commonality, right? Like, the org providing resources and support that people need to feel part of a community and to have that footing and foundation to be set up for a successful, healthy life.
And just for the listeners outside of the US, so when Pooja is talking about PA, it's Pennsylvania, right? You're talking about?
Yes, PA is Pennsylvania. Thank you.
You know, it's when I walk and actually also when I walk virtually with folks, we often talk about religion and spirituality, because there is something to walking that, you get the question pops up, like, why are we on this earth? What do we do this? And so a question that I have since is to all my guests is actually, what do you see happening among youth in your community in relation to religion and spirituality? And because some of my guests have said, youth are not religious anymore, and others say, yes, they still are. Depends on which country you are, which part of the world. Others are saying they are not religious, but you're spiritual. So what do you see as still a young person yourself? What do you see happening among youth and religion and spirituality?
I think it's such a mixed bag. It really depends on which youth, where they grew up, where they're based, who they were surrounded by, their family, their friends. So for my personal experience, in high school, I had the opportunity through Multicultural Club to do kind of like a tour of the different religious organizations in my city, in my town, during Martin Luther King Jr. week, which was deemed Peace Week. And so we went to the Buddhist temple, we went to Swaminarayan Hindu temple, we went to a St. Catherine's church, and some other organizations, religious organizations. And we had the chance to ask questions, to learn about to learn about their religions, the practices, the relationship between the religious organization and the communities. So I think there's a lot of curiosity amongst youth often about how influential religion can be for someone's own values and as a guide, or how it can really, for me personally, what I appreciate about religion is that it can really help give hope to somebody who may otherwise not be able to find hope. And I really appreciate the community aspect of religious organizations as well. If you're moving to a new neighborhood, then if you find, your religious organization, you have this means of building community when otherwise you might feel lonely. So I think, so I myself am just spiritual and was raised Hindu, but I believe that there's something out there, but, not necessarily a single God. But I'd say other folks, I have a friend, Alex, who works at the intersection of climate change and religion. And we've seen initiatives by the current Pope and this, I am forgetting, do you recall, Maurice, the name of the initiative by religious leaders around the world on climate change?
Referring to the initiative of the Pope, it's Laudato Si.
Mm.
And as a result of the letter, then that whole movement started. Yeah, I still think it's called Laudato Si, but I'm not 100% sure. So a lot is happening there. Are you encouraged by that? Is that why you were raising it? Well, I understand what you're saying in terms of it's a mixed bag. It depends on where you are. Maybe it is different in the US or in more Western countries than more in the South.
I think even in Western countries, it depends where you are. Like if you're in the South of the US, I would say there's more influence of Christianity, for example, than if you're in like New York City or something where you have such incredible diversity.
The next question that I want to ask you is, you and I, we met during the Climate Action Week. It's one of, climate action is one of the SDGs. I always, during this podcast, I try to lift up the SDGs because for me, that's kind of an important, framework. It might not be perfect, but it's what we have. If I ask you to, to talk about the SDGs, about the Sustainable Development Goals to the listeners, what do you like them to know about the SDGs? Or maybe not at all, and then also why?
No, of course. I think the SDGs are a valuable tool for communication. They break down a lot of the world's biggest problems into digestible, comprehensible, bite-sized goals, right? If you here are the 17 major sustainable development goals, it's a lot easier to understand what the UN and other organizations are striving for and what they're working towards than if you just said there's a lot of problems in the world and we need to solve them. Here's what one organization is doing. Here's what another is doing, right? It's for communication purposes. I think it's very, very useful. And I think for monitoring and evaluation and for accountability, it's a helpful framework to set all of that other stuff in place.
And no, thanks for that. And unfortunately, already now, for 2 years or so, we are not making the progress that we need to make. And there is now a growing group of people that is saying that, one of the reasons why we are not making the progress that we need to make is because we did not pay proper attention to the skills, knowledge, and abilities that we need as individuals and as community to make those, to go for those goals. And therefore, they came up with the inner development goals. So I have 2 questions around it. Have you heard about these inner development goals? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I've heard of the inner development goals, and I think they're useful, but I think they're also difficult to kind of enforce or have metrics towards. It's more, the goals that would be helpful for individuals to work towards achieving so that they can better approach solving some of the sustainable development goals, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like all of those other tests kind of that you take that tell you what your personality is like, what you can improve, and some solutions for improving those things. But so I don't know how useful it will be.
Well, I mean, just for the listeners, because I forgot to mention it, there are 5 inner development goals that have been identified as a result of a huge survey among the world, a big population in the world. So that the first goal is being, the second one is thinking, the third is relating, and then collaborating and action. So basically what they're trying to do is provide tools for individuals and communities to work on themselves. because change starts with yourself. So you need to know what your dark spots are, where you need to work on. But ultimately, if you know more about yourself and you know more about your community, you can get into action. So absolutely, goal number 5 is an important one. They're all interconnected, of course.
I have plenty of things to work on, but it is a good framework, and it's a good way to learn about how to describe what you're working on or what you're going through, right? Helping you find the vocabulary to be able to articulate what, maybe some of your points for improvement or your strengths, and see how you could work on those things. Yeah.
Part of the inner development goals is also the self. So I try to find out more about my guests, to reveal what you're really about in all of your aspects. So I have a question about music that I always ask. So if I ask you to come up with a piece of music or a song that best embodies what you are about, or for a big part are about, what song or piece of music would that be, and why?
You asked me this and I forgot, but the first song, I forgot to think about this, but the first song that popped into my head was Yuhi Chala Chalrahi. It's a Hindi song, actually. And the beat is very uplifting. It's like, let's say you're starting the day, and actually the video is of 2 people just in a car off the set on a road trip, and they're just like jamming to this. It's like a fresh start. They're getting ready, they're getting pumped so that they have the proper mindset going into their adventure, essentially, right? And so I really like that song because if I'm ever down or something, then I can just listen to it and be like, you know what, this is just the beginning. We're still starting. We're still early. Get your head straight. And, it's okay to like make mistakes. It's just the beginning. So I would say probably that song.
And when the people you work with and your friends, if they don't see, if they feel down and out and don't know anymore, where to go and how to go about it, are they going to you to be pumped up? And
yeah, I'd say close friends will come to me. And likewise, I would go to close friends. Then I also have people from the climate space reaching out, right, for practical help. Maybe less about getting pumped, closer friends for getting pumped up, and family for getting pumped up. But other friends for more general advice on, where do I even start if they're feeling kind of overwhelmed.
Okay. I hope that the song that you're mentioning is also, we can listen to it by going through Spotify. I don't know if that's the case.
It's on there.
Okay, so I will add that song to a playlist called #WalkTalkListen, where all the songs that have been picked by my guests have been added, so you can listen to that. And it's really cool, from classical to hard rock, and now a Hindi song is there. So I will add that. Pooja, this podcast is also my effort to connect people with each other. And one of the things that I started a couple of episodes ago is to ask my guests to come up with a question for the next guest. So my previous guest has a question for you. Hold on.
And also to everybody that's listening is my question, because you can answer it for yourselves. What is the thing you really want that you haven't been willing to ask for or make happen yet? And what's stopping you, and who can you call to help you move forward? Because we don't want to be stuck right now.
It was an excellent question, a very good one. Well, what I immediately thought of was actually with this organization, I really wanted to take the jump and work on it full time in 2020, or like 2021, my funding ended. And I had to decide whether to accept the full-time job, or to go all in full-time on my organization. And at that time, I was scared. I was also going to lose health insurance, and I didn't have any savings in the bank. And so I ended up going with the safe option. And I really, really enjoyed my time with that organization. They are lovely, and I learned a lot about how to start up an organization. But I knew I really wanted to just go all in on mine, that I had, just spent a whole year setting up. And so I finally just took that leap this December, and I'm going to get started after this huge little mental break for 2-3 months.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And did you call somebody to help you through this?
Yes, I leaned on my friends. I leaned on my family. I was nervous. I was also just not fully confident in myself yet. And there was a lot of like cultural stuff involved as well, right? Like, you don't really take this kind of risk. And, but I ended up just taking it after talking to a lot of friends, family, and professionals in the field who've taken similar risks.
Can you explain what you mean with there was a cultural dilemma or hurdle?
So I think especially growing up with immigrant parents, and me being an immigrant myself, you kind of grow up with this mentality, right, that you got to choose kind of a steady life, a life that has more guaranteed safety and security. And, going all in on an organization with not, non-guaranteed funding and stability and all of that risk involved, was definitely like a step away from the direction that I had been taught about my whole life, and my parents, I can understand why they were scared for me, or just worried.
Yeah.
But because of their sacrifices, I'm able to take these risks, and I just explain that because of that, I can do this. And so just trust that I'll try my best. And, at a certain point, if it doesn't work out, then I can always thankfully just go back to the classic working life.
Pooja, your question for the next guest.
My question, I should have thought about this more. Let's see. Let's see what I've got. Well, one question that I was asked through a Shiro program was, what is your life's purpose? And to provide a life purpose statement. And so I guess my question for the next person would be, what do you see as your life's purpose, and why? But if you think that's too big, I can do a different one.
No.
But I was asked that, and I was like, whoa, I need to write.
I was only thinking...
And you have to answer it in one sentence.
Okay. You're making it tough. Steve Hartman of CBS, he started something, I think it's called The Gift. So he is searching for simple acts of kindness. And he believes that, these simple acts of kindness can create a ripple effect. So I think it's a television program, or at least it's on the internet. What are your thoughts about simple act of kindness? Well, he's saying, if you do something for somebody else, it can have enormous effect. It will have ripple effects, and so we should all do more simple acts of kindness. It will make the world a better place.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm in agreement with that. I do believe that when you do good without expecting anything in return, that good will have its ripple effects. And even if it just puts a smile on one person's face for that day, why not? It doesn't have to. I would say there shouldn't be that pressure of your act of kindness or any action that you take getting the most impact for that action. There's a lot these days that's about, kind of what's the best value for this act of kindness, right? And we've kind of lost that touch of just doing good to do good, with all the metrics involved. So I think going back to that principle of acting in kindness, regardless of the impact, is best.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. I would like to ask you right now to come up with a simple act of kindness. What would you do?
For simple act of kindness, well, I guess like being in India right now, one common act of kindness that has come up is if little kids who are growing up on the streets come up to you asking for some money or some food, then being able to supply that, or saving your leftovers to be able to give them to the kids that need it here, and just being more thoughtful about what I'm doing with the food I've got left over, any beverages, any clothes. So that's been very commonplace here right now.
Yeah, these conversations always go fast. I still would like to ask you if you have any last message, invitation, or question for the listeners.
Yeah. Mm, I would say that it's really important that you find people who you can trust, that you can lean on in times where you might need help, or where you may just, that you might need help, that you might want some advice, or that you feel is just a safe place for you to turn to when you're faced with different challenges. Just make sure that you're able to find that naturally and have that, and also be there for other people who may need that.
Hey, I'm guessing that one of the reasons that your organization, focuses on actions to help to do something about climate change, is that you're worried about where this world is going. But my question to you is, where do you still see hope, despite all those challenges that this world is facing?
I see hope when people grow up in maybe the worst of circumstances or the best of circumstances, but still are driven by different passions and will take action to help maybe one person that day, or take little steps that accumulate to bigger steps that, then change something bigger or even a policy decision. I think it's very inspiring to see people find out, what they care about, and then learn, whether through struggle or easily, how they can do something about it, and then actually do something about it. And it's even cooler when what they do is seen by somebody else, and then they're inspired to then do something else. I've been privy to spaces where I've seen these ripple effects, or where I've just seen people so passionate and so focused, no matter their upbringing, no matter what they may or may not have. And that's been a great aspect to see, as well as the community building side. Finding people who are interested in similar things and that you can do something together with has been really cool for bouncing energy off each other, and feeling like you're part of something that's bigger.
Which I would like to thank you for today's conversation, for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with me and the listeners. I would like to wish you all the best, all the success in the world with your organization, and that your dreams, will come true, that you will be able to realize that you are envisioning. And I really encourage the listeners to check out your activities and follow you. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me on this podcast as guest, and for having this podcast in the first place. It's really nice, and everyone, please check out the other episodes as well.
Great. This episode was made possible by the support of an organization called CWS. You want to be part of a movement? Well, sign up to become a sustaining partner. As a sustaining partner, you can make a difference in the world, automatically every month. Sustaining partners commit to a hopeful future by making compassion a part of their monthly budget. It could mean new systems to manage precious resources like water, or diversified ways of earning a living that make people more resilient. For as little as $10 a month, you can transform lives. You want to check it out? Well, go to cwsglobal.org/sustain. Thank you for listening to Walk, Talk, Listen. Please check us out on 100mile.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.